Good evening, everyone. My name is David Halafmi. I'm the chair of the history department here at Cypress College, and it's my honor to welcome you all to our third annual Yom Hashoah event. We would actually like to begin tonight, as we have in the last 2 years. If I can actually ask everyone to please rise and join us in a moment of silence to honor the memory of the 6 million lives murdered. Please remain standing after for the playing of the national anthem by Gary. Thank you.
Present. Arms.
Thank you, Gary. Please be seated. June 6th, 1944. World War II had already savaged Europe for 5 years. Millions of people had already been rounded up, gassed, burnt alive, tortured, even experimented on like animals. It was on that day that 2 million men began their descent onto Europe. They came by sea, land, and air. 18-year-old boys risked everything, some gave everything, to end the nightmare that had ravaged Europe. As they stormed those beaches, they faced the most horrific conditions. German resistance nests hundreds of feet above, machine guns, landmines, an endless onslaught of death. But they did not hesitate. They landed, and they began the liberation of humanity. Several years ago, I had an amazing opportunity to step foot on Omaha Beach. And I will never forget this one image I saw of this girl. There she is, 6 years of age, 5, 6 years of age. She was running on that beach. And as I'm standing there, I thought to myself, my God, just a few generations earlier, that same soil was stained with so much blood, and she is free to run on that beach today. And that is such a powerful moment. Especially when it's right above that beach, of course, lies the sacred of sacred lands, the American Cemetery at Normandy. Here lie the heroes who gave everything. There is a debt of gratitude which can never be repaid to the young men who fought to save the world from humanity. We are here tonight to remember the Holocaust. That's what Yom Hashoah is. The word Shoah is the Hebrew word for Holocaust. But what we also wanted tonight to be about is a night to remember the idea of gratitude. Over the years, I've had a chance to meet many survivors. And there's one thing that strikes me about each and every one of them. They are always so grateful. They're all so happy. They're all so full of life and joy. I tell all my students the first day of all my courses, you cannot control what happens in your life. You can only control how you react to the things that happen. Every single person in this audience tonight has a demon. Everybody has something that keeps them up at night, something they worry about. When you see people are happy all the time, it does not mean their life is perfect. It means they have learned the lesson of gratitude. The survivors are the epitome of that idea. To see individuals who went through the darkest, most terrifying tortures and not only find happiness in life, but then find such a positive purpose in life is an inspiration. And for that, we are always, of course, grateful. So we gather tonight to remember the Holocaust. We gather tonight to learn gratitude. We gather tonight to remind ourselves how blessed we are for the freedoms we have because of the military men and women who to this day still protect us. But there is one other reason we gather here tonight, and it is this last image I'd like to share with you. This is an image of Dr. Eisenbach, one of our survivors who will be up here in a moment speaking, and my daughter, who's 4 months old. My parents were born in Iraq, and because they were Jews who were born in Iraq, everything they had was taken away from them. Dr. Eisenbach and the survivors, because they were Jews who grew up in Europe, lost even more. My daughter is Jewish. When I look at her, I see pure innocence. She laughed for the first time this last week. And the thought of knowing what the Nazis were able to do to a child that innocent is why we are here tonight. So what happened to my parents, what happened to our survivors, never happens to her and never happens to any other child again. So I am beyond grateful. We are all beyond grateful that all of you have joined us here tonight. So together we can always remember those words, never again. I wish you all a very meaningful evening. Thank you so much, and God bless. Now I'd like to invite our first survivor, Goethe Cipher. She will be reading a letter from an American liberator who helped to free one of the concentration camps.
Good evening. I think this is a little too strong. Good evening. A few years ago, I invited a soldier to come and visit us in Long Beach to read a letter he had written to his parents from Europe, because he went there to liberate the camps, among other things. He came to Long Beach and he read the letter. And later he wanted to go on the Queen Mary, because it was Queen Mary that took him and the other soldiers to Europe, where he finished the war off. This is what he wrote. Dear Fox, I've just returned from a newly liberated German concentration camp. It is less than a week since we got here. I would like to tell you what I saw. It is a large camp, 50,000 men, but considered small in comparison to other camps. It is located on a high hill near a rock quarry. There is a wonderful view, but I don't think prisoners have much time to admire the view. The camp housed 50,000, but disease, starvation, and murder reduced the number to 20,000 inside the last 6 weeks. Others were dying of starvation even as we were looking the camp over. Food was available, but not until tomorrow will it be comparable in quality and quantity to the food that we eat. The guide said most happily, tomorrow, if we get the same food as you get, it will be excellent. He said he had examined our rations and found them excellent. It really made us ashamed of our complaints about eating out of cans. He said that he had a little soup, bread, and margarine and was forced to work on this diet all day long. The prisoners worked very hard until they dropped dead. Some prisoners were hung by their arms behind their backs in a camp and then taken to a nearby forest and hanged. Our guide told us that there were still bodies in the forest who had been machine gunned and never buried. I suppose the Germans had no time for it before we arrived. We saw the crematory and could see charred skeletons quite plainly. 20,000 bodies could be burned in a day, and the furnaces had gone full blast for a day and a half. We saw a room full of naked bodies of prisoners who died of malnutrition in the previous day or two. Their skin seemed to be coated with wax. I saw the barracks they lived in. There were shelves on each side, and they slept side by side, packed like sardines. The bunks were 4 high, and the bedclothes were lousy. American ambulances were making trip after trip to the camp to take the worst cases to where they could get medical attention. Those who could walk wandered aimlessly around. Others were lying on the bed and asked us for cigarettes, candy, and sugar. There was a group of German civilians in their best clothes taking forced off the camp walk. Our guide told us that the German women cried and said, Hitler had lied to us. The guide told us that there were German political prisoners in the camp who were allowed to have visitors. Also, the camp prisoners cleaned up bomb damage in the nearby town. So, the German people knew what the score was, or just deliberately closed their eyes. Well, enough about this subject. If you have an opportunity to see movies or snapshots of these places, be sure to see them. I don't believe we need to worry about FGIs. We are not being too easy on the Germans. All my love, Clifford Michael Jr. He came to Long Beach and he read this letter, and that is the best truth that you can hear from a 21-year-old soldier. He has died since, but I think this letter is a very important part of the Holocaust information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Goethe. Now I'd like to welcome our next survivor, Pious, who would like to say a few words about freedom.
Dearest American heroes, There are no words in English language to express the profound gratitude for everything you and the entire U.S. military, along with the Allied forces, did to save my life and the lives of countless Jews and others. In the Torah, it says, he who saves one life, it says he saved the world entire. Forgive me. I'm so overwhelmed. Could I have my daughter read the rest of it I wrote?
It's hard to believe that it's been 73 years since I was liberated by the Americans on a train, just having left the death camp of Dachau. Hitler knew that he was losing the war, and we knew that he was trying to kill as many of us as possible. We were being taken to an unknown location where we would all be unloaded and shot by the Nazis with machine guns. Suddenly we heard shooting, and the train came to an abrupt stop. When the cattle car doors opened, in the faint light, I could see the brave faces of the American soldiers. I heard some of the older people yelling, "Americans, Americans," as we came off the train half alive. We all fell to our knees and began kissing the feet of the American soldiers. You were all so humble as you helped us stand, and I learned my first American phrase, "Let's go, let's go," as everyone was being ushered into an area where we were given chocolates and powdered milk packets. Sadly, many of the survivors' stomachs blew up from eating too much too fast, and they died right there. For the rest of us, you took us back to Dachau, where that death camp now became a displaced persons camp. I waited 5 years in displaced persons camp while my aunt, uncle, sister, and brother continued to send papers and affidavits of support, stating that I would not take a job from any American, that I would have a place to stay upon my arrival in the U.S., and that the U.S. government would not have to support me. I came to Ellis Island in 1950, where I legally immigrated to the United States of America. It was the happiest day of my life. I came to this country not to fly Czechoslovakian flags nor hang pictures of former Czech President Masaryk, but rather to become a part of the American fabric. I was and am a proud Jewish American. I learned English, worked as a seamstress, married my husband, a physician who had enlisted in the Army in World War II and fought and was wounded in the Battle of the Bulge, had 4 daughters, all college graduates, one of whom is an alumnus of Cypress College, a law professor here with me today, and lived to see 8 beautiful grandchildren. I was taken to the ghetto on the eve of Passover 1944, the holiday of freedom. In a matter of moments, at age 14, I had my freedom ripped out from under me as I went on to the death camps of Auschwitz, Geislingen, and Dachau, and watched as my parents, older married sisters and their children, younger sisters and brothers, and countless relatives and friends were all gassed and burned in the crematoria at Auschwitz. Thanks to you, my dear Dr. Noham, my hero, and all of the U.S. military, I recently celebrated 68 years of Passover Seders in freedom in this wonderful country of America. For those who have never lost their freedom, they cannot appreciate what real freedom is. There's nothing more precious to a human being in this life than to have freedom. It breaks my heart when I see young people on college campuses desecrating the American flag, athletes refusing to stand for the national anthem, or people refusing to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I worry about the rise throughout the world of anti-Semitism and the BDS movement. It hurts me when people propagandize against the USA and disrespect our military, under whose blanket of freedom we're all protected each and every day. I am forever grateful that we have a president not only who respects our military, but is a true friend to the state of Israel. When I was in Dachau, I never would have dreamed that I would live to see the 70th anniversary of the state of Israel, and that an American president would finally be moving the U.S. Embassy to Israel's eternal capital of Jerusalem. Thanks to our U.S. military, America is great because of its goodness. You and our military heroes have twice liberated Europe, the people of the Soviet Union, been a beacon of hope to the world, and so many in our military continue to serve our country with honor. You and so many brave veterans gave your all, and so many lost their lives so that we can live here as free people. To those who seek socialism, communism, or ideologies that seek to destroy our U.S. Constitution and the values that our country stands for, to them I say, you should kiss the ground that you walk on in the United States of America. And if not, America is a free country, and you're free to leave. Yet to all those who feel as I do, that we are so blessed to live in this free country of the United States of America, where we have the opportunity to thrive, live in freedom, and pursue happiness, we owe you, my precious hero, Dr. Nochem, and all of our military, our eternal thanks. At 90 years old, I cannot bend and kiss your feet, as I once did when I was 14. But as a Bat Kohen, a descendant from 4 lines of the high priest dating back to Aaron, Moses' brother, I would like to express my undying gratitude to you for giving me my life and my freedom by bestowing this blessing on you and all who are present here today. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Yo'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. May God make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yosem lecha shalom. May God grant you a long life full of health, happiness, love, prosperity, and peace. And may God bless and protect our U.S. military and the freedoms you fought so hard to preserve, the state of Israel, and forever bless and protect the United States of America.
We have another really wonderful man to introduce next. We did our first Yom Hashoah event 2 years ago, and we had a doctor named Dr. Eisenbach. He's a hero as heroes go, and he was a survivor. He's going to come up here and speak, but he's also going to honor one of the U.S. veterans who helped liberate the camps, Dr. Hammerlock. So Dr. Eisenbach, if you can please come up. And then
Thank you very much, David. I'm 95 years old. Thank God my health is perfect. I just came back from a trip to Australia. Before that trip, I had a complete physical examination, so I couldn't find a thing wrong. I come from a family of almost 100 people. It's only 2 of us that are alive. I have 1 cousin in Australia and myself. Most of my family vanished in gas chambers and through Nazi machine guns. I had an 11-year-old brother who was sent to the gas chambers in Auschwitz. I had a 19-year-old sister who was in the ghetto in the city of Lvov. And when the Nazis occupied Lvov, They built a ghetto. There were 110,000 Jews in that ghetto. And one day the Nazis came in with machine guns, and in 3 days they killed all 110,000 Jews, including my sister Fela. I'm here today to honor a great American hero, Dr. Henry Nahum. Dr. Nahum is 98 years old. He's a dentist, a graduate of Columbia University, and he was a professor of dentistry all his life at the Columbia University and the Loma Linda University. During the war, he joins the American Army. His goal was to destroy the Nazi army, and he helped to do that, to liberate the prisoners from Nazi concentration camps and to hide those Nazis who performed the crimes. He was in the 28th Division, and he was crawling on the ground on the Nazi bullets flying in the air. But he was not afraid, because he had a mission to accomplish. I personally have never met Dr. Nahum until 2 years ago. But I know what he did for me. He never met me. I was not where he was operating. I was several hundred miles away. He was between Stuttgart and Heidelberg in Germany, and I was in the city of Częstochowa in Poland. And thanks to his efforts, fighting the Nazis, I was liberated from a concentration camp in Częstochowa. And I will be forever grateful to Dr. Nahum for what he has done to me, for me personally. He was about to be shipped to Japan to fight the Japanese. And he was told that there is a good possibility that there will be 100,000 casualties on the first day of an attack against Japan. But fortunately, while he was on the way out there, the atomic bomb was dropped over Japan, and he wasn't needed anymore. He's very modest about his accomplishments. But he's a great American hero, and a hero for the Jewish people. I want to recognize Dr. Nahum and give him a standing ovation. giving a lot of speeches internationally and nationally. I'm also a dentist. I retired 3 years ago. And since I retired, I'm devoting my full time to lecturing on the topic of hate, anti-Semitism, the Holocaust, and a topic of a great global importance, and that is genocides, which has been happening for thousands of years, and it's happening to this day. After my speeches, I have a question and answer period. And at one time somebody says to me, I know some friends who are leaving this country. They think the country is going downhill. And I'm considering doing the same. And he asked me what my opinion is. So I told him, the United States has always been the greatest country in the world to live in. It still is the greatest country in the world to live in. It's going to continue to be the greatest country in the world to live in. And the man said to me, if that's your opinion, I'm staying right here. I'm asked the question, did you lose faith in humanity after what you have experienced? And I tell people the stories of King of Denmark, who saved every single Jew by sending them to Sweden. Raoul Wallenberg, who issued 100,000 Swedish visas to Hungarian Jews and saved them from extermination. Chiyonisu Gehara, a Japanese diplomat, who issued 6,000 visas against the orders of his government to Jews who went to Japan and survived. There are many great humanitarians who saved Jews. They couldn't stand watching what the Nazis were doing to us. How can I possibly lose faith in humanity when such great humanitarians are walking on the surface of this earth? I'm asked the questions, how do you fight anti-Semitism? I am proud to be a Jew. The Jews have brought to the world the great ideas of justice and morality. This is one reason why Hitler hated the Jews. He didn't believe in those things. And I will remain a proud Jew forever. How do we counteract anti-Semitism? By being good people, performing good deeds, mitzvahs as we call it in Hebrew. And treat your neighbor as you would like to be treated yourself. Set an example. Australia is a great country. My cousin has a daughter who's a judge. He has a son who is a medical doctor and another son who is a businessman. The doctor has a patient who is the Prime Minister of Australia. And he was invited to a 95th birthday party which the family gave Henry 2 years ago. And after the party, he sent a letter to Henry and to his son, the doctor, telling them how happy the Australian government and the Australian people are to have their Jews among them. I was asked if I feel like having revenge. What my revenge is that I'm alive, I'm in good health, and I live in the greatest country that ever existed. And the white and blue flag with the Star of David, the flag of the State of Israel, is flying proudly. We have to work against genocides. There are many international organizations that have been established for the purpose of fighting genocides. The former Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, and former American Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, authored a booklet on how to prevent and eventually eliminate genocides. All decent people in this world should be working against genocide. Genocides have been happening not only against Jews, they have been happening against all nationalities, religions, and cultures. And it's about time that we work to stop genocides. And the day will come when the world will eventually be able to say, never again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eisenbach. I went to visit him a week ago, and I'm telling you, this is one of the sharpest men I've ever met in my life. He asked me, how's your mom? She was born in Iraq. He met her one time 2 years ago, and he still remembered her. All the people he meets, I'm just amazed. So thank you so much again. Now we'd like to actually invite a special guest, a singer, the daughter of Dr. Nahum, Bonnie Nahum Yaros, who is going to perform songs about the ghetto, and she will come up here and she will explain her songs and give you some background on this. So please welcome Bonnie Nahum Yaros.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here this evening, and it was very emotional for me to see my father honored. I really appreciate this whole event and the college here. I would like, before I tell you about the songs, to introduce my accompanist, Dr. Brian Hammerlock, who was my colleague at Santa Ana College, chair of the music department, and he will accompany me on these songs. My interest in Holocaust music started before I even realized it. I was a child sitting next to my piano teacher, Lily Asael, and my mother told me that she had been in the Auschwitz-Birkenau Orchestra. And I didn't know what that was. I wasn't sure what Auschwitz-Birkenau was either, but I soon learned. We have Holocaust victims in our family, but at that age I didn't know, but it remained with me. It remained with me, and I always thought about the Holocaust, music, Holocaust. And as I became an adult and a musician, I continued to have an interest in the music of the Holocaust because of one very special thing, that music is a resiliency factor in life. Whether you listen to it, perform it, compose it, it uplifts the soul. And so all I could think was that it must have been uplifting in some way. And what I discovered, I dedicated my dissertation, my doctoral dissertation, to the music of the Holocaust. But what it turned out to be was a resiliency factor. And I found over 100 songs in the ghettos and camps, some sung by one or two people, some sung by groups, some played, some composed and not performed, in every language you can imagine. Not only Hebrew and Yiddish, Hungarian, Polish, Greek, Ladino, Judeo-Spanish, and I recorded 18 of these songs which accompany my dissertation. The songs we're going to sing this evening, we're going to perform this evening, are two that were chosen by the Professor Maha of the dance department, and they are very different. Very different. The first one is Anima Amin, and this one was known everywhere as the chant of pious Jews because it is based on Maimonides' 19 statements of faith. And it is an example of a statement of faith. I believe. Ani ma'amin, I believe with true hope and trust in the coming of the Messiah, and though he may tarry, I shall never stop believing. With my voice I will declare, I believe. The reason this became a Holocaust song is it was sung in every ghetto and every camp. As, again, an act of resiliency. It wasn't a sad thing. It was, I believe and I know that I'm going to a better place if I must perish at this time. And even if I may survive, I believe and I will survive. I will survive. There is a story called The Singing Train, and it really exemplifies this. There was an elderly, very pious man in one of the boxcars, and he had the inspiration of this act of faith, Ani ma'amin, and he started singing. And little by little, everyone on the train, and you know how those were. They were very close quarters. They were very close together, and many didn't survive, even the trip on the train. I'm sure that our survivors know this. They were on these trains. The whole train sang this. It went from car to car to car. And so we're going to do Anima Amin first, and I would like to say that we're going to have dancers also, because not only music, but art, poetry, and dance all uplift the soul. And these were choreographed for these pieces by Maha, professor of dance here. The second song is Soll schon kommen die Geule, done in Yiddish. And this one was done after the liberation. This is called Let Salvation Come. And it was after the liberation. So it wasn't a ghetto or camp song, but shortly thereafter written, the poetry written by Shmerke Karszynski and the music written by Abraham Kook. And the words of this are translated as follows. Though our hearts are ever aching To life our cups we raise, though our grief will ever haunt us. It's life our song will praise. If there's not a drop of brandy, let water be our brew. Water, after all, is life. What else needs a Jew? And one other comment before we start on Anima Amin is that life is sacrosanct. And even in the Kaddish, the mourner's prayer, death is not mentioned. It is life. Life. Always looking forward to life.
Ani, Good evening. My name is Clifford Lester. I'm a professor of photography here at Cypress College. My parents are both Holocaust survivors. Last week, I had the honor of participating in the Loyola Marymount University Yom Hashoah observance. 45 minutes prior to when the event started, I was asked by the director of the event to host a private conversation in front of everybody attending with Goethe Cipher, who spoke here earlier this evening. We were instructed to share artistic insights into the thoughts of a photographer and his subject during the portrait session we had earlier this year. While somewhat uncertain about how this challenge would go, I looked into Goethe's eyes as we began and saw a sense of calm I hadn't experienced since my mother was alive 14 years ago. I immediately felt deeply comforted and thankful for her presence with me on stage. Goethe is a woman who experienced unspeakable horrors during the Holocaust, which ranged from being crammed into a house in the Jewish ghetto with 19 families to hiding in a 4 by 6 foot cellar as other Jews from her city were shipped to the camps and murdered. Later, Goethe would learn that only 2 of her 40 close relatives would survive the war. I wondered how Goethe could appear so calm and composed when I had questioned her about these past events. She shared that she had finished her crying years ago. I proceeded to ask her why she agreed to do this photo shoot and what expectations she had for the photograph we would later capture. She said she hopes future generations would see this photo and know about her and what she stands for. Clearly, as you witness her portrait in the program you received this evening, it is easy to see that this is a woman who cares deeply for others. She states that she is committed to share her story so that others should never be treated as she was. Goethe's message represents that of many survivors I have photographed. They are people filled with gratitude for their lives and thankfulness for their freedom. They have endured the worst of the worst, that they come here to speak on our behalf, that we should treat others with respect and kindness. This is the voice of Goethe. This was the voice of my mother as she shared her experiences during the war while living in Amsterdam. And this is the voice of the Holocaust survivors. Last year, at the encouragement of my wonderful dean, Dr. Katie Realista, I was given the opportunity to take a sabbatical to continue my work documenting survivors. This evening is an outcome of my research. Tonight, we honored a veteran I had the opportunity to photograph that was involved in the liberation of the Nazi death camps, who along with our allies fought for the freedom of our country. We owe Dr. Nahum, along with all of our veterans who have fought for our country, a huge debt of gratitude. Speaking of gratitude, I couldn't be more grateful for my college, my district, and my colleagues for giving me this truly life-changing opportunity to photograph survivors, to share their voice, and to keep their voice alive as the years move ahead. As some of you know, I'm retiring at the end of this semester, but my work is just beginning. I have already 8 survivors and 1 liberator lined up to photograph. Their names, their faces, and their stories will be added to the Cypress College website and our gallery of Holocaust survivors here at Cypress in order to share with you our wonderful, caring community. I thank you all for being here tonight to serve as witnesses to the words you hear and to keep the memory of the Holocaust alive. In the loving memory of my mother, Ursula Lowenbach Foster, my uncle Ernst, who was murdered at Auschwitz, and all those who have perished at the brutal hands of the Nazis, may we look towards a brighter light that together we can bring to this world. God bless you all. Now I have the honor to present a survivor I also photographed, who has endured hardships that words cannot begin to describe. A survivor of 2 Nazi death camps, and the author of a book entitled From Hell to the Promised Land, which Sam Silverberg will make available for purchase and signing after the event. Due to the fact that his story tonight, as he has shared with me, is very curtailed due to the limited amount of time I have given him, you can read more about his story in the book. Sam Silverberg is a man who today shares his message of gratitude and peace. I'm so very proud to present him to you now. Sam Silverberg.
Before I give you a glimpse of what transpired when a 10-year-old kid goes through hell, I just want you to be aware that you live in a land of plenty, that you enjoy the freedoms, and you should cherish every minute of it. When I look at this diversified crowd, I just enjoy seeing the diversity and the love that you inspire all around you. Don't forget that you got the word to do and the will to resist dictatorial influences. So keep it up. Now, I'm going to give you a glimpse of my background. I was born in Poland, in a town. We had a large family. My grandfather had 10 kids, so I had lots of uncles, lots of cousins. The totality of the family was about 108 people, of which only 4 survived. That was the extent in the reach of Nazi extermination. I remember when I was 9 years old, in 1938, my grandfather went to the Holy Land, so there was a bon voyage party, and everybody gathered around. It was a huge crowd, and I was 9 years old and saw a bunch of people. That was in November of 1938. See a bunch of people gathered, and there's some talk going on, and I'm nosying around to find out what it's all about. And an uncle of mine, Uncle Moses, notices me nosing around, took me aside, and said, you know, I'll tell you what they're discussing. They're discussing the Kristallnacht event in Germany, which the German goons went and killed some Jewish people, destroyed synagogues, businesses, and so on. And he told me, you know, you can see when this happens, the cloud of war is imminent because the Germans, Hitler occupied Sudetenland, which is, he occupied Sudetenland, which is in Czechoslovakia, under the pretext that there are German-speaking people there. And I know this is a university that cherishes knowledge and history, and you history buffs should remember that Hitler in 1938 occupied Czechoslovakia under the pretext that are German-speaking people. The dictator of Russia, Putin, in 2014, occupied Crimea under the pretext there are Russian people, Russian-speaking people there. You see how history repeats itself. And it is your job and obligation to make history and make sure that it does not repeat itself in that drastic a fashion, and make your voices heard. And this, at that time, my uncle said to me, when things get worse and you see the clouds are imminent, I want you to just get up, go through Europe, go through Turkey, go through Syria, into the Holy Land. That's where the Jewish people belong. He was a Zionist, and that really ignited in me the spark of Zionism, because Poland was replete with anti-Semitism. They called me all sorts of names in school as a kid, and it was hard to take. Lo and behold, in September 1, 1939, after I was 10 years old, on August 25th of 1939, the Germans marched into Poland. Now you people don't understand and know what an occupation army, what cruelty is, and thank God that you don't. But just put yourself in a 10-year-old's position, where I love, military maneuvers, when I saw the Polish army and maneuvers and so on, but nothing was equal to them when the Germans marched into Poland, the big trucks and tanks with young German soldiers singing, "Heute gehört uns Deutschland, morgen die ganze Welt," which means today we own Germany, tomorrow the entire world. Or Deutschland, Deutschland, über alles in der Welt, which means Germany above everything else in the world. And with that kind of attitude, they came in as an occupation force in Poland. And the minute they came in, they introduced strict restrictions for discriminatory restrictions for Jews. I was not able to go to school, and in our household, we had 4 children. I had 2 brothers and a sister. My older brother was 4.5 years older than me, and my sister was 18 months younger than me, and my youngest brother was about 4 years younger than me. Now, this is what has transpired during the occupation. As the edicts got stricter and the Germans needed to mobilize more of their youth into the army to please the Führers, the aspirations of occupying the world, they had to substitute that labor force. And the way they did substitute that labor force was by taking able-bodied young Jewish men into labor camps and concentration camps. And that's how my older brother was taken into a camp. The businesses that the family had were taken over by a German Gauleiter who didn't know a damn thing about the business and forced my father at little to no pay to run the business for him and collect all the money. But that was nothing compared to what transpired later. They occupied countries of Europe, all over Europe. And by 1942, January of 1942, the Wannsee Conference of Nazi big shots decided that they will solve the Jewish problem by exterminating the Jews. Extermination took place way before that. What they did, they would take many Jews, put them into trucks, take a hose attached to the exhaust pipe, and suffocate them by putting the other end of the hose into the truck, and then bury them. In many instances, they had them line up, dig trenches, stand in front of the trenches and shoot them, falling right into the trenches. The behavior of the Nazi occupation was the most cruel in the world. But what did they do when the big shots decided to exterminate all the Jews? They developed an industrial system of exterminating people. They built a railroad track, just Auschwitz, which was 18 miles from the town I lived in. They built, with the help of Polish labor, a railroad track which would lead right into the selection system of Birkenau, which is next to Auschwitz. And if you remember, you have seen pictures with the tower, and below it is a railroad track, and the trains leading to that railroad track were coming from all over Europe, Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, you name it, Belgium, any country you want to name, that's where they came from. There was a point where the tracks were so massive that Birkenau, Auschwitz-Birkenau, could not exterminate them fast enough. So they sidetracked the railroad cars. They were not cars, they were boxes in which men, women, and children were shoved into without room to sit, and were taken all over Europe to the extermination camps of Poland. I remember in our town, which was 18 miles out of Auschwitz, and Birkenau is a subcamp of Auschwitz, which was the extermination arm. And what did they do? They developed a system, the German chemical industry developed a system where they could gathered the people that they took into the camp and forced them into showers under the pretense that they get cleansed and cleaned. And while in the showers, the doors were hermetically locked. The showers were open too, there were showers, but in the roof above the showers, the Germans put in cyclone B12, which was a poison gas. Originally it was designed as a pesticide, but the clever German industry developed a system where they can do mass killing in that way. And then they had the Sonderkommando, which is, the word Sonderkommando means special commander. In Auschwitz, take the bodies that were poisoned into crematoriums and burn them, and then bury their ashes. And that's how 6 million Jews were killed in different extermination camps, primarily in Poland, and to some extent with the help, if not outright help, is with the fact that they were silent. When you see evil and you are silent, you are participating in tolerating evil. So now to you young students I say, when you see something, say something, but do something as well. You are young, you got what it takes, you're energetic. You don't have to take the crap that's being handed out to you. Do what you gotta do. Thank you. I was a rambunctious kid, actually, because I didn't take stuff, because when they called me Jew bastard or whatever, I didn't turn the cheek. I said, okay, you're so strong, come on, let's see what you can do. And that's the attitude you gotta have in life, otherwise you're gonna be stepped all over you. It wasn't too difficult, but when those Germans sidetracked the cars, there was the strong will, I gotta help. I was only 11 and a half years old. So my mother gave me 2 bags, you know, full of food stuff and so on, so that I go down to the sidetracked cars that were meant to go to Auschwitz with people from Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Holland, you name it. And when I come down to those tracks, luckily there were a lot of bushes and greenery, so I could crawl into the greenery. And when I came and I heard the cries of those people who weren't given any food, nothing, it was beyond me. And I'm only 11 and a half years old. Then I tried to throw the stuff that my mom gave me to them. At the beginning, my aim wasn't too good, but then it got better. I was able to do it. Then when I came home, my mom says to me, how did it go? So I said to her, oh, it went well and all this, but it was just destroying me, seeing those people suffer with their outstretched hands. And as closer I got to the railroad track, the stench of human excrements was awful, and I couldn't describe it to my mom. I didn't want to. Besides, and I didn't want to tell her that the Nazi guards were there. I was lucky to just do it without them noticing me. And I was afraid, because if I get caught, they take me right in. So I didn't tell her, because I wanted to be able to do it again. Lo and behold, after a while, because our town was so close to Auschwitz in Germany, they decided to concentrate the Jews in ghettos in various towns. For you people that don't know what a ghetto is a constricted geographic location where you settle people that you don't want to mix. Basically, it's like a camp. And the problem is when, for example, I was taken to the ghetto of Sosnowiec, which is right about 15 miles from our town, because the Germans decided that they would collect the Jews in ghettos, so that makes it easy for them when they conduct raids, that they can take them into concentration camps and so on. Of course, we were not allowed to have any education, but because the Jews value education very highly, so my parents, along many other parents, decided to do schooling at different levels in different homes. So it was behooving upon me, because my older brother was already taken to the labor camp, to take my younger sister and brother to schooling. And I had to make sure that when I take them to school, that we don't get caught up in a raid and sent into the extermination camp of Auschwitz. It worked for a while, but after a while, the Germans decided that the town we lived in has to be cleansed of Jews. The German word for it was Judenrein. And so they sent us to another adjacent town where there were more Jews. Finally, we wound up in the ghetto of Schrodula, which had 35,000 Jews. We were lucky to get an apartment at the basement apartment, which was the bottom apartment on top of a hill, which gave us a good view of surrounding area. And since we had no means of having a living, my parents taught me how to go and make a living, which entails smuggling goods from the ghetto. Well, the ghetto had a lot of craftsmen. They produced shoes, clothing, and other goods. And food was very hard to get. So obviously there was a black market between the ghetto and the outside world. But to get out of the ghetto was impossible. The price charged for a pass was so prohibitive we couldn't afford it. Luckily we opened a hole in the fence, which was a wall, not the kind that Trump built, but it was a wall. And we were able to open a hole in the wall, and I would smuggle out from there and go with goods from the ghetto. I didn't know I was 11 and a half, 12 years old. I didn't know anything about it. So he told me, look, you buy in the ghetto a pair of shoes for $10, you sell them for 12. You buy a suit for 15, you sell it for 20, and so on. Then with that money on the outside, you buy butter, bread, milk, whatever provisions you need, and so on. After a while, I got the hang of it and worked. The problem was that I had to walk a mile to the streetcar. And I wasn't allowed to be on a streetcar because I wear the Polish stuff, the Polish student uniform. But when I wore the Polish student uniform, the Germans were not so familiar with stuff, but the Poles were, and I was afraid that they would give me away as a Jew to the Germans. So that was hazardous. Anyhow, that was good for a while, it worked well. Come August of 1943, the Germans, as we saw caravans of Germans coming with the machine guns, and the dogs, they had special bulldogs. And we knew that this is a raid. My father has built a bunker so that when they come with a raid, we can hide in the bunker. And the bunker was built which is a hiding place, by separating a room, walling off a room, making a hole in the wall against which he built a stove with a baking compartment, and the baking compartment was used for when the raids take place, we can sneak into the hiding place and wait out the raid. But this time the raid was so thorough that we knew something bad is going to happen. Sure enough, this hiding place was built for about 14 people. This time there were about 23 people in the hiding place. As soon as that caravan of jeeps and stuff came in, we heard the loudspeaker saying, everyone has to report to the selection place in the big lot. And there were 35,000 people in that ghetto. And so we decided maybe we'll hide it out. And we were in there, 23 people. All of a sudden, we hear steps in the apartment above us. You could hear thump, thump, the German boots. And all of a sudden, there was a woman with a baby among the 23 people. The baby started crying. And so we were afraid we'd give her. Sure enough, the Germans discovered us. The mother of the baby took a pillow to subdue the baby's cry, so the Germans don't hear, but it was too late. In the meantime, she suffocated the baby. And the Germans found us out, told us to report to the assembly place where it was set up. Now you guys can't picture that, because you have no point of reference, thank God, because you live in a country, in a place which allows diversity, and thank God for that, and you better fight for it. When they told us to report to that place, after they took access and opened up the floor above, it was an awful sight. I remember having seen those people. It looked like a death march. They marching to their own death, but they didn't know about. I'm skipping over a lot of things that happened in between. And if you want, you can get the book. At that point, my sister was in the hospital because she had gangrene leg, they were going to amputate it. My younger brother and my mother and my father were going, and people going with belongings like they go someplace, they're going to use them. They're going to you go to that assembly place, just imagine 35,000 people. There's Germans with whips that separate babies from their mothers, fathers from their sons, and husbands from their wives. The shouting, the crying is like hell. And here I am, by that time I'm 13 years old. I'm 13 years old, didn't have a bar mitzvah. And I look around, and I know that I'm destined to go to Auschwitz for extermination because I'm too young. And I said to my father, look, my father decided that my younger brother go with my mom, and I go with him. So I said to him, look, I don't want to be the one that's causing you to go to Auschwitz. So you go to a labor camp. Okay? I'll make my way, I'll see what I can do. Anyhow, he did go and was with the able-bodied man. And I was thinking, what the heck do I do now? Then I see that a couple with 2 kids is arguing with the German guard, and he has his back to me. So I quickly snuck in to the section where my father was, and I stay there. And I go there, and then I realize I'm too small, and what the hell? If the Nazi comes to the selection, he's going to send me right back into Auschwitz. Luckily, I found a cinder block, and I took it in the back row. I stood and stopped there. The German comes and asks my father, "Was ist dein Beruf?" He says, "What's your occupation?" He said, "He's a mason." So he sends it to the able-bodied man, you can tell. I was by then smart enough to know the difference. Then he goes to me, says, "What the heck are you doing?" So I said, "Well, I'm a mason's helper." So he told me to go to this same group where my father was. But then I didn't want to go down from the cinder block. I thought he's going to send me back to Auschwitz. So I waited till it goes a little further away, and I managed to get to my father's unit, and we were taken from there on trucks. Now once we were loaded on trucks, and we looked upon what's going on with these 35,000 people, it was awful. I thought I'd be able to spot my mom. I wasn't able to do it. Then we were sent to a labor camp. Well, that's it, time is up.
Again, I know Sam has so many stories to share, and this book is available out in the lobby afterwards. We thank you so much, Sam. Now I'd like to have the president of our campus, Dr. Schilling, come up and say a few words.
David and Cliff, I think I'm going to ask to go first next year. This is so powerful to hear these stories, and I will be brief in my remarks because you're not here to hear from me. But I do want to thank you, Dr. Eisenbach, Ms. Cipher, Ms. Katz, Mr. Silverberg, and Dr. Nahum. It is such an honor to have you with us this evening and to bear witness to the power of hope in the bleakness of the unimaginable. Despite the amazement we all feel in hearing these tales, I am so moved by your ability to come out of the darkness still holding on to the light. I know that I speak for all of us when I say that hearing your stories is inspiring, it's deeply hopeful, and it makes us all so grateful for the freedoms we continue to have in this country. I hope it also reminds us how important it is to guard our freedoms and to stand up to the powers of hate. In telling your stories, you honor those who lost their lives while also reminding us that we must never become complacent in cherishing our liberties. In a recent survey reported by the New York Times last week, a red flag was raised that as the Holocaust becomes more distant, the atrocities also become less well known. According to this survey, 31% of Americans and 41% of millennials between 18 and 24 believe that only 2 million Jews were killed during the Holocaust. We know that number is over 6 million. 41% of Americans and 66% of millennials could not say where or what Auschwitz was. And although 93% of Americans believe that the Holocaust occurred, 52% of Americans could not identify how Hitler came to power. So why is this important? For 70 plus years, the world has tried to come to grips with how the Holocaust could have happened. What forces were in play that encouraged the rise of fascism, and how did otherwise good people look away when Jews and others were persecuted and eventually sent to their deaths in these camps? We want to comfort ourselves into believing that we would not tolerate such evil, that a Holocaust could never happen again, and that we would all stand up against a government who demonized groups of people, and that the rise of national pride would not tip us into the unimaginable. But although a Holocaust is only seen fully in retrospect, the horror begins in degrees, in small steps, and it is allowed to happen when we avert our eyes when hate is directed at someone else. It occurs when there is a tacit acceptance that the bullying of groups of people is all right, and in refusing to stand up to those who do not have a voice, and in looking the other way when actions benefit us at the expense of others. As Simon Wiesenthal once said, "For evil to flourish, it only requires good men to do nothing." As educators, it is imperative that we continue to tell and listen to the stories that we have heard tonight, and that history is told truthfully and fully, and that the horrors of the Holocaust are studied in our schools. Tonight also marks an important acknowledgement of the role our veterans played in liberating these camps, and the trauma they, too, experienced by what they witnessed. When General Eisenhower visited Ohrdruf, he said to the troops present, "You may not have known what you have been fighting for, but now you know what you have been fighting against." Anticipating that one day some people would try to deny the Holocaust, Eisenhower ordered every American soldier in the area who was not on the front lines to visit Ohrdruf and Buchenwald. I am grateful for Dr. Nahum's presence here today to remind us of the role our veterans played in this human drama, and that they too have an important story to tell. So if this history is fading from memory, it is resurrected in full color by these survivor stories this evening. And it is our responsibility as educators to teach our students about our shared humanity, and we must continue to be fierce and outspoken advocates against the power of hate. Thank you, Gerda, Piri, Henry, Sam, and Jacob, for the stories you continue to tell. And thank you, Clifford Lester, for ensuring that these stories are heard, and for the work you have done throughout your career at Cypress College. As you now know, Cliff is retiring after 20 years at Cypress. We are grateful to you for bringing this history and the story of these survivors to our door. The Holocaust Memorial Gallery at Cypress College is your gift to us, and we will cherish it. We will be serious-minded and grateful stewards of this gift. Your legacy is that no student at Cypress College will ever be able to say that they did not know what happened at Auschwitz, or how many Jews lost their lives during the Holocaust, or how democracies and freedoms die. This is the legacy of everyone on the stage tonight, and we will hold on to your stories as if they are our own. Thank you for your courage, and may we all hold fast to the liberties we have in this country, and may we have the will to stand up to hate and hold fast to our commitment to never, never forget. Thank you.
conclude our evening, I'd like to welcome up Rabbi Zargari, an immigrant of Iran. Rabbi Zargari was instrumental in providing freedom to many Persian Jewish immigrants who were forced to leave their country as a result of the religious persecution, anti-Semitism, and political instability which existed during the time of the Iranian Revolution. Tonight we are honored to have him join us as he will share some thoughts about gratitude and freedom and lead us in the candle lighting ceremony to follow as we remember those 6 million lives extinguished by the Holocaust. Rabbi Zargari.
I'm humbled by all the beautiful speeches I heard here tonight. For me, it's a first. What am I doing here, a Persian Jew born in Tehran, Iran? Once I heard that Ed Koch, the ex-mayor of New York of blessed memory, once he said he's a Holocaust survivor. So you, a Yankee that lived all his life in America, he said, I visited Berlin, I don't know where it was, in some sort of museum about Hitler, and I saw in his office there was a globus, and on it was written in every country how many Jews are there. And that was his intention wasn't just to make Europe Judenrein, he wanted to make the entire world Judenrein, including probably us, the Jews in Iran. So yes, in some sense, I feel also like I'm a Holocaust survivor, nothing to compare with the experiences we heard from our brothers, sisters. But you see, being Jewish, you know, the word Yehudi, Jew, the Bible tells us come from Todah, from gratitude, appreciation. The Torah tells us that when Leah, she gave birth to her fourth son, she said, I'm going to call this boy Yehuda. Yehuda comes from, I want to thank Hashem. And it's interesting, the 4 matriarchs, each one of them was supposed to have 3. She said, I got more than what I deserve. I should have gotten 3, I got 4. And the word Yehudi, a Jew, means a person that has gratitude. We wake up with Modeh Ani Lefanecha, we thank Hashem for every second of being alive. That's what Yehudi means. And we have that sense of gratitude, defines us in spite of all the circumstances. I was so inspired, I think it was Mr. Silverberg was talking, other ones, like to go through all these experiences at the same time, to come out and to build and to have such full lives and to have that sense of gratitude. It's something that defines us as Jews. It's very interesting that the Bible predicted this. It says that in Devarim it says 8 years after the darkest moments in our history, the dawn is going to appear. The Gaon of Vilna is famous. He says in Hebrew language, Shachor means dark, Shachar means dawn. And he says the darkest moments of the night are right before dawn. And this is, we just heard, 1942. That's when they were thinking and planning how to exterminate all the Jews to make the world Judenrein. And 6 years later, God gave us the state of Israel. We have, I'm so moved, a lot of people in my community, even though we are not Persian Jews, we are not Holocaust survivors, they go and they attend this March of Living. They go to these concentration camps, and one of my congregants, surgeon, he was just telling me that, he went through the march from the camp to the other camp, and then they landed in Israel, and he said he bowed down, and I kissed the land. And I was so proud of carrying that blue and white flag of Israel. we see that, how the way Hashem, God made it. It was the darkest moments of our history. And then there was a dawn, and now we are celebrating 70th year of Yom Ha'atzmaut, the Independence Day, that Baruch Hashem, thank God, we see how the Jews survived and what they have made. And Jews are coming back. I think the world a lot is appreciating that the Jews, other than serving the entire humanity from day one, as the God says, that through you it should be blessed. All the lands, all the nations of the world, people are saying that in different areas. It's true about us, Persian Jews as well. We had served in Iran for 2,700 years. And, till the last revolution, that revolutionized for the first time, that we had to go into exile, really. And, we have all gratitude. Not just gratitude to the Almighty that saw to it that America is here on earth, and America has been right. For us that we came here, and thank God we have our institutions, our schools, our synagogues. We are able to practice our religion, to preserve our traditions. And we have all the gratitude to United States of America. We have that, and it's amazing. I was involved. I was in America a few years before the revolution, and when the revolution started, I went to Europe to help to bring also our hosts' relatives. Nasrin and the family. I was there. I was a young man studying in a rabbinical college, and it was so amazing when I went there to bring them to America. They thought that America gets something from saving Jews, and I told them this is what America is about. America is a place that that has been throughout the generations, a place of hope for the entire humanity. And I was so moved to hear that from the previous speakers, that sense of gratitude and appreciation. It's not just to Almighty God, but it's also to America. The Bible tells us that if we do not appreciate each other, we are not going to come to appreciate God either. The Bible says first, Pharaoh got up, that he did not recognize all what Joseph had done to the Egyptians when he saved them. The same person that did not appreciate, didn't have gratitude towards another human being, Joseph, later on didn't have gratitude towards Almighty God either. So we are here. It's not despair. It's like seeing that hope, that the powers of light, as was mentioned before, the only way really to fight darkness is with the illuminating candles and light. And this is what we are seeing here. We are seeing each one of the speakers, right? What they went through these experiences. And I think it's true about our community. And I don't get enough opportunities to express that appreciation to America, because I have my congregation, I'm very active in our community, but it's an opportunity for me personally, and I appreciate that, to be able to express that sense of gratitude towards an American audience, that that we were blessed to have this opportunity to survive. I don't want to say at all Holocaust. We cannot talk about that. But what we went through in Iran, the persecution, etc. Right? It was for us. America was a miklat, a shelter that God provided, and we have that sense of gratitude and appreciation. I was given this task of inviting these few, individuals that are here gathered. I'm truly humbled to call them to come to light candles. And this is really the best way to fight darkness are these candles that we light, because there's no other way to be able to fight darkness. I would like to ask I hope I spelled the names right, Mr. Sam Silverberg, Mrs. Piri Katz, Mr. Harry Lester, Mrs. Goethe Cipher, Dr. Jacob Eisenbach, also we have a second generation survivor, Mr. Rick Van Bynen. חנניה בן הקשור ורצקו ושמרו זכות ישראל לפיכך ריבו תורה ומצוות שנאמר אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר יתגדל ויתקדש את שמי רבה ועלמא דיברך ימותה וימליך נתמותה ויסבח בקנה וקרא בשיחה וחייכון ויומכון וחיי בכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי עלמיה מתברך ושנתן ותורה ותשומה ויחסית הדר ותמיד של קודשה וריבו ואלם כל ברכתה, שירתה, תשכחתה ונחמתה לאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן על ישראל רבנם ועל תלמידיהון ועל כל תלמידו להסכים בראיתי כנישתה בי באתר הדן ודי בכל אתר ואתר יהדנה ולא נולכון חינה וכיסה ורחמי מקודם מראה שמיה וערב ואמרו אמן יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה חיים וסבבה וישועה ונחמה וזרוע ורפואה וגאולה ושמחה וכפרה ורווח והצלה לנו ולכל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו וברחמיו יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Now, as we conclude our evening, I'd like to call Bonnie Homiaros and her accompanist Brian as we all stand and join arms as we sing a song together of healing Mishavera. Thank you all so very much for attending. God bless you all tonight.